So we've formed this coalition together with the companies on this panel, with Microsoft, with IKEA and Lenovo. And our goal is to try and end climate change confusion. And we've just kicked off a co-creation exercise that runs around the world in 12 major cities, where we're bringing together citizens, consumers, experts and companies to try and work on this problem. The other thing we're doing and we're talking about as a coalition is how do we create these new products and services for the future that Trish mentioned. At Interbrand, we have a ranking of the world's most valuable brands. It is interesting to us that Tesla was the fastest growing brand in that ranking last year. So there are tremendous opportunities for businesses and brands to lean in to a new future and to help build a better world. So if we could just talk a little bit about that, if I could come back to you, Serge, how do we give hope to consumers and the public in the world? What can Allianz and what can our alliance do to try and build hope and optimism for the near future and for the next generation?
Yeah, I think the hope is, as you say, Charles, with the companies in this alliance, we pretty much touching every individual in the world, whether it's in developed market, whether it's more developing market. And so that's the, I would say, beauty of cooperation. And back to trust, I would say that in general, the public is trusting more corporations now than they trust governments, for example, in many parts of the world. And so I hope we can indeed stand by the trust the customer have in us as corporation to try to do good for the world, to try to indeed not do any greenwashing, because we would lose trust, in a second, and really come together. And I think beyond, just our own products and services, and really say, what are the 2-3 things that really have the most impact, that indeed people can the most easily associate themselves with for the largest impact. So I think there is a lot of hope, and there is the movement that started, and there is a lot of energy. And thanks to Peace One Day for today, because that's a great energy day.
Thank you, Serge. Baba-san, coming to you. How can you give your daughter trust and optimism, either through the activities of Panasonic or the coalition that we're working on together?
Yeah. Well, I would encourage the people to demand transparency and standardization from demand side point of view with human language. So people demand the tasting goods and the comfortable air and safety, comfort, move. This is a human language, not coal, fossil fuels, and burning something. It's the comfort require energy. Energy requires fossil fuel. But once we connect our human activity into the cause of the disaster, the potential cause of disaster, then people will realize the importance. So I strongly encourage consumer to demand transparency and the ability and the contribution to solve the problem should be more transparent and measurable in the standardized fashion. So I think the Wi-Fi example is a great example. Probably Charles, your Interbrand have done before. It's very easy to recognize the high speed and secure. Is without using the jargon, IEEE or something. It's really trustworthy logo and the brand. So we need something like that coalition to engage more easily with the benchmark of 8 billion people. And that's my hope.
Thank you, Baba. Tricia, what would you like to see corporations do? We started with 5 partners as well as yourselves. What would you like to see more from the private sector to try and build trust, optimism, and hope in the future?
Yeah, I think it does connect to the previous question. I mean, we have many great pledges, many great commitments, right? But these are now, as we're seeing, triggers for regulatory and legal reforms, and they're becoming market signals, right? And we've heard a lot, of good examples about the opportunity, and I think as Serge, critically also mentioned, trust. And so it's more than just business opportunity. It's all part of one piece. But I think to be able to sort of emerge from this confusion, right, which has been added to, right, by so many of these different commitments and pledges, at least for the the average person, it's triggered all of these sort of concerns from regulators and even from the UN. I think what would be important for companies is to say, okay, again, we have something called the Sustainable Development Goals, right? We do have a framework. We do have the Paris Agreement. We do have, specific targets, and we do have, some guardrails, that we know can sort of keep us on a trajectory that we need to go on. Can we get more specific? Are there 2 or 3 things that we can specifically say, we are going to how we're going to make good on our commitments? It's not about committing necessarily more, right? And that includes on finance and investment. I mean, we say we need about 4 trillion annually through 2030, for example, to sort of get us back on track, for the SDGs and towards the Paris Agreement. Well, that's not a lot when you consider the bailout packages of following COVID and all the fiscal stimulus, which was actually unevenly balanced between green investment and conventional energy investment. So it's not that it's about more finance. It's actually about directing, the resources that we do have, and that's finance, that's technology, that's innovation, that's R&D. So I think if there's some way to identify what are those 2 or 3 things that would actually make the greatest impact, on the pledges that have been made, and then as our colleagues have said, and enable consumers, both and their business clients as well, to connect, with this, to build that trust, so they actually can sort of own that ambition and that impact as well. I think that's really important because, as was said, very early on in the discussion here, the majority of companies, emissions, the ones that are really the hardest to tackle, are the ones that they don't control, right? These are how their products and they're consumed by people, by businesses, right, by the end user, and all of the other things that go around that. So maybe that can be one, that we call it Scope 3 in UN and academic terms. Maybe that is one area that could be something to explore in terms of a concrete action. And like I said, and those connected investments that actually make good on pledges already made.
Great.
Thanks.
Tricia, thank you so much. I think our time is up. I'd just like to finish by saying the simple thought we had was who could help persuade consumers to act and behave differently than some of the world's most powerful brands, who persuade us to, spend part with our money on all sorts of things, some of which we need, some of which we probably don't. But with a coalition of some of the best brands and some of the biggest businesses behind them, we really think we can make an impact on the world and the world of climate. So I want to thank Peace One Day for bringing us here, and thank my fellow corporations and panelists for all the contributions here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.